Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. The Naira is Nigeria's official currency, traded 99% within Nigeria. To trade outside Nigeria today, Nigerians need approximately 750 Naira for $1. The Central Bank of Nigeria has net reserves of approximately $17 billion and 20 tons of gold. The strength of any currency lies in the nation's leadership strength, monetary policies, and debt to development ratio. Nigeria, a naturally wealthy country of over 200 million great minds, vast arable land, and ample natural resources, lacks stable power supply, well-educated human capital, and necessary infrastructure for industrial prowess. The kobo, naira, or e-naira are symbolic of Nigeria's strength as a nation and should therefore be treated most usefully to achieve a dignified standard of living nationwide. Increasing Naira's foreign exchange value can be achieved with intelligent financial practices and a significant increase in trade surplus and currency reserves. As Nigeria's debt increased by over 300% to over $100 billion today, Nigeria's international trade balance decreased from a surplus of 86 billion USD in 2012 to a deficit of 9 billion USD in 2022. This can be attributed partly to changes in global oil trade and COVID-19, but mostly due to a lack of foresighted development in diverse trade and highly essential infrastructure. In 2023, an end to fuel subsidy was announced, despite rising inflation, while many millions live on less than 1,000 Naira daily. As the upper middle class decry dollar scarcity and trade difficulties, the middle-lower class decry bankruptcy and Naira depletion. With 96% of Nigeria's revenue being used to service debt, there is not much left for development when we consider the very high cost of governance that is being run on debt and more debt. We await imminent decisions on the 30,000 Naira monthly minimum wage as Nigerians are spending over 99% of monthly income on food and religious activities, with little income left for anything else. Dependency on or preference for foreign currencies and foreign products can be regarded as one of Nigeria's and Africa's heaviest chain of colonial exploitation. Important discussions coming up shortly, but let's watch this special report, Perspectives. We'll be right back.
Some people would say this is not a great time to be Nigerian or trade with the Naira, as the value of the currency is at an all-time low. As Nigerians digest the implications of the latest major devaluation of the Naira, bankers' thoughts may well turn to the currency's last major drop of 2016. In the midst of a bearish oil market, falling dollar reserves forced the Central Bank of Nigeria to abandon its support of the Naira in July 2016, prompting the currency to lose 30% of its value overnight. The country's new administration, headed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which was sworn in late May, has moved to end a long-standing complex forest management program, which had seen shortages of foreign currencies and a plethora of different rates for different sectors, creating significant arbitrage opportunities for those with access to foreign currency. Following the removal from office of the CBN Governor, Majekodunmi-Oniru, the primary architect of the program, on June 9, the bank allowed the Naira to trade freely, prompting a 23% fall in the currency's official value and around 40% on the parallel market, making it the biggest one-day fall in the currency's history, according to the Financial Times. Today on Perspectives, we will be focusing on the new reality on ground, with Nigerians now having to grapple with the effects of devaluation of the Naira and the high cost of living, which is currently pushing a lot of citizens below the poverty line.
We're heading for a short break, but do please stay with us because a lot more will be on when we get back. We will be having our special guests, Onigbinde of Budget and investment banker, Dr. Obiaraeri. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. Moving on to introducing our guests, first off is Onigbinde. He's the co-founder and director of Budge8. Oluseun is the recipient of the Ashoka Fellowship, Future Africa Awards, Quartz Africa 30 Innovators Award, Aspen New Voices Fellowship, Melvin Jones Fellowship, and Stanford Draper Hill Summer Fellowship. As a Knight Innovation Fellow, he also worked with the International Center for Journalists and the Gates Foundation on rethinking health journalism in Nigeria. Oluseun has worked on several projects funded by the MacArthur Foundation, Ford Foundation, Open Society Foundation, Oxfam, and Omidyar Network. He is a graduate of engineering from University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, and a recipient of executive education from Stanford University on social entrepreneurship. You're welcome to Perspectives, Oluseun. Also joining us for this conversation is Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, a certified financial engineer and investment banking executive. He has broad experience in all aspects of private equity funds management. Dr. Obiaraeri has managed funds and portfolios in excess of 65 million USD. He has direct experience in capital raising exercises in excess of $3 billion for corporate organizations and government in Nigeria and international markets. Dr. Obiaraeri has special interests in early stage startups as well as companies on the bubble. He is the founding chairman of Southeast Farms and Agricultural Processing Company, with chains of agro-processing factories and the biggest agro park in Ohafia, Abia State. Dr. Nnaemeka has a bachelor's degree from Abia State University and advanced certifications from Leeds Metropolitan University and Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. Very warm welcome to Perspectives. Glad to have you both with us. Dr. Nnaemeka is in the studio, and we have Oluseun on Zoom.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Tell me, how are you feeling today about Nigeria's economy, about the Naira? How are you feeling?
Personally, some of us are privileged and to occupy the positions that we occupy. But it's not the same for 95% of Nigerians. You say it without any doubts that 95% of Nigerians cannot go home with income that they earn without begging and subjecting themselves to all manner of dehumanizing antics. The statistics are there clearly. 133 million multidimensional poor Nigerians. And if you look at the records from the deposit money banks and the BBS, you discover that out of NDIC, out of the over 170 million bank accounts in Nigeria, only about 0.4% has up to 500,000 Naira deposit inside it.
Oh, wow.
And that's about 800,000. And you look at the accounts closely, if you interrogate, you discover that most of them actually be multiple accounts, use BVN by maybe one or two or three individuals. So you will discover that in Nigeria today, there are less than 400,000 Nigerians that can boast of up to 500,000 Naira deposit in their bank account. If you look at the current exchange rate, 500,000 Naira is less than $500. And this is something an average janitor in the US or any of the European earns about $10 to $12 per hour. You know, it is biting hard. You know, you talked about minimum wage. 30,000 Naira. A bag of rice is 44,000, the local rice. With the cost of living in Nigeria today, a family of 4 cannot survive on anything less than 250 to 300,000 Naira. And Nigerians are not beggars. Nigerians are resilient. I say it with every sense of responsibility. The average Nigerian with his limbs intact can make as much as 5,000 to 10,000 every day if we put in place the right physical governance, security, and institutional infrastructure framework that can empower them. I am the kind of person that even on the street, I try to find out from artisans that work with me their experiences. I have people who work, like, I met a vulcanizer and I sat the guy down discussing with him. The guy says he makes an average of about 5,000 to 7,000 Naira every day on a good day. And he talked about his machine being bad, he needs empowerment to buy new machine and all those stuff. And it's same thing with every Nigerian. We have over 110 million active working population in Nigeria. 55 million of them are either underemployed or unemployed. Employment rate, if you look at KPMG records, it's about 40% employment rate by KPMG records. You know, and mostly among the youths. And Nigerians are the most resilient and hardworking people you can find anywhere in the whole world. Go to America, go to Europe, go to South Africa. In America alone, they are the most educated in terms of demography.
Very true.
And how come the average Nigerian migrates out of this enclave? And they are doing so well. Whatever they put their hands to do, they are not lazy. All that they need and ask is those that they elected or those that rigged themselves to power, provide us with the requisite governance, fiscal, infrastructure, and security architecture that will enable us to unleash the latent potentials that are in us. If you look back to history, I call it our golden era, between 1960 to 1966, when we had the constitutional and physical resource control framework that allowed the regions and the constitutional units to control whatever they produce and pay 50% to the center. Things were better. The North had the granite pyramid, the cotton, the West had the cocoa, the East had the limestone, the cement, the palm oil, the coal. In fact, the first rail network that was built in Nigeria was from Enugu to Port Harcourt, because the colonialists built that rail network to enable them move coal and to move palm oil. Go and look at the colonialist record in the 1918. 60% of the revenue they made was from the crude palm oil. As at 1965, Nigeria controlled over 45% of the global crude palm oil market. That market today is about $72 billion sized. Indonesia alone makes about $7 billion from it. Indonesia, interestingly, came to Nigeria in the decades ago to pick the seedlings. This is the only part of the whole world where the palm grows on the wild. We've lost track. We even, over the last 5 years, we imported over 600 billion Naira worth of palm, things that grow naturally here, because we do not have the governance framework, the physical framework, the things in place to enable us to go back to what worked for us. Look at those that governed within those periods. Michael Okpara was 39 years old when he became the premier of the old Eastern Nigeria. Within 6 years, that young man developed industrial corridor of over 214 kilometers. He did not have any fossil crude oil to develop. In fact, the economy of the old Eastern Nigeria was growing at 9% per annum, the fastest growing in the Commonwealth. As at 1964, go and check the records. I wasn't born then, but I read the history. The police of the old Eastern Nigeria was so efficient that they were hired to go to Congo Democratic Republic to make peace. And it's the same thing. So if you look back, as at 1965, Singapore, China, Korea, we are nowhere anywhere near Nigeria. We had a passport that was well respected. The regions had their own embassies. You could enter any plane and fly to any part of the world without any visa. That was how well Nigeria was. The fact Nigerian pounds then was more powerful than the dollar and the UK pounds. Things began to go south after the military interventions of 1966 and then the unification nonsense that Gowon did. We've never recovered from that. So if we look back, and I say it with every sense of responsibility, the problem of Nigeria is foundational. Even if you bring an angel in Nigeria to rule Nigeria under the same current constitutional framework that allows the less educated, the less knowledgeable among us to rule, we will not get it right. As at 1964, we had men like Sir Louis Odimegwu, one of the richest men in Africa, chairman of 15 corporations, as a parliamentarian. He wasn't there because he wanted to make money. He was richest in Africa. He was there because he wanted to bring in his experiences, his knowledge, to put in policies that will help grow the country. We need to go back to work for us.
Did you say if we have the most knowledgeable, educated, experienced people, we would still not get it right? Did I hear that? No?
I said the constitutional framework then allowed the best, those with altruism, to seek and to gain power, because the salaries and wages of those who were in power were tied to that of the civil service. It was part time. People were part-timers. You didn't have a senator or a parliamentarian, anything. So when there is no perks and incentives, when the senior president cannot have 28 vehicles in his convoy, 5 of them bulletproof, costing about 2 billion, when there are no privileges that will make people kill and maim to occupy, they will not seek to occupy public office.
Wow.
When we have the arrangement we had in the early 60s that did not provide any of such larges for public office holders, those who sincerely love this country, who has the capacity, who has the competence, who has the patriotism, who has the sincerity and honesty and passionate creativity, will be those governing Nigeria. And when you have those kind of men like Awolowo, like Michael Obara, like Sir Ahmadu Bello, like Tafawa Balewa, like even Jokonde. I drove through the mainland. I saw Jokonde built over 6. What are you talking about? Over 16 estates in Lagos, 5,000 housing units. How did Jokonde get the money between 1979 to 1983? Jokonde did not leave any mansion anywhere for his children. The same from Bakwe, the same for Abraham Adesanya, the same for most of the guys who govern Nigeria. Michael Okpa never left. In fact, I visited Michael Okpa's first son, and I was marveled at the humility of his first son. Michael never stole anything. The only thing Michael Okpa left behind for them was the legacy of his great accomplishment for the Eastern Nigeria.
Dr. Onyeka, you've spoken so passionately, so well, about the importance of quality leadership to take Nigeria forward. You've spoken the heart, the mind of millions of Nigerians. You've spoken like someone who understands the pain, the pressure, and what inflation is doing to the economy today. Thank you so much. Let me bring on our guest, Oluseun. Oluseun, how are you today?
I'm fine, I'm well. How are you doing too?
I'm well. Welcome to Perspectives. So for you, what's your response to the recent remarks to the 800 million loan from the IMF meant to cushion the effects of subsidy removal? What do you think of continuous international loans, not grants, tied to charity and cost of governance rather than guaranteed revenue maximization?
That's a difficult question. That's a very simple question too. We have to choose ourselves, and I think that's the fundamental there. Banks, international organizations, multilateral institutions have their own agenda. Sometimes I feel like we are like more like a big experiment for them. So they would sit down in their spaces. Interestingly, I'm not far from them, and decide that, okay, we want to expand social safety net and cash transfers, and Nigeria could be one of our pilot environments. I mean, if we're going to borrow $800 million, we have to ask ourselves, for what purpose? I mean, this is the mistake we did in the last 8 years. We took a whole lot of foreign loans, a lot of external debt that were not tied to either expanding export infrastructure or either expanding our revenue significantly. So it was just, we needed to show up our recurrent surplus, or we wanted to show up our current account balances, and because of that, we went to go and take loans just to make sure that CBN is able to defend currency or able to provide dollars to those who need them, because we were just stuck on rates. I don't think the $800 million loan was taken because there was a need for charity to poor people. I don't think so, because it's not like at the end of the day, the federal government would give dollars to the people on the streets. No, so you're still going to get convertibles to Naira. I feel most of these decisions is just that there's a dollar somewhere, there are millions of dollars somewhere that the CBN can access, and we can use that to add to our reserves to continue to defend the currency or defend the peg. But internally, we have to ask ourselves, is this the best way of doing this? We've done cash transfers in the last 3-4 years, last 8 years, of President Buhari. And we have to ask ourselves, people are getting much more poorer, according to the NBS. Even recent decisions have made it much more worse. So the question is that we need to reflect, what exactly are we getting wrong? I mean, if we look back maybe a decade or two behind, we will see that one of the biggest changes, one of the biggest economic growth we had in this country was because the previous government focused on macroeconomic stability. If inflation is 30-40%, or if food inflation is around 35%, and I keep giving you 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, it doesn't change anything significantly in your situation. Focusing on the macroeconomic stability was something which the previous government should have prioritized first. And I think that's what the new government also has to do, because whatever it's 8,000 or it's 800,000 million, it's not just for charity, it's just a fiscal or a current account decision. I don't think that's meant
Thank you, Sheon. The recent 800 million loan from the IMF was meant to cushion the effects of fuel subsidy on the economy. Nigerians are going through a lot at this very difficult time. I saw a video yesterday of a lady decrying having to spend $10,000 to go from the mainland to the island within an hour, within 2 hours. What do you think of the current minimum wage at 30,000? This is a time, remember that this is a time that government is actually reviewing it, and we're expected to hear back from government. Do you have any recommendations, any viewpoints there?
I mean, I've always spoken about the fact that we don't have a proper data framework of Nigerians. I mean, who are the citizens of Nigeria? What are the data systems for them? I mean, the previous speaker spoke about the NDIC figures. Who is rich in Nigeria? Who is poor? Who needs subsidy? Who does not need subsidy? In any developed society, the government must know its people, must have a proper data system. It must be linked across board, so their income levels are linked, their housing units are linked, their assets, properties, ownership, everything is all linked to a single data system. And the government has a full view of how to intervene or support any individual at any point, at any given time. We don't have that. So whatever we're doing, it's ad hoc, it's fragmented. It would not be able to optimize results at the end of the day. And if I was going to say, so if we have not figured out that data system, the other alternative is to solve issues from a systemic perspective. That's my own decision. One, food inflation. What are you going to do to reduce the current rise in food prices? Is it a logistics problem that you're going to fix?
Okay, so we just lost Sheon, so we bring it back to the studio with Dr. Una Emeka. Dr. Emeka, a professor in the United States who ranks annually global currencies, referred to Nigeria's Naira as a junk currency. What are your viewpoints on this?
He referred to it as a junk currency. Let us look at the perspective. Because Nigeria is practically 98% import dependent. You know, I find it so strange when I hear that we spend billions of dollars defending Naira. The Naira does not need defending. We didn't defend the Naira in the pounds in the early 60s. We didn't defend the Naira in the 70s. Remember, there was a time the Naira, 80 kobo was equivalent to $1. What do? We don't need to defend the Naira. See, currency management, the value of the local currency to any foreign currency, convertible currency, is obeys simple law of demand and supply. Let me give you an example. Vietnam. The Vietnamese local currency, the dong, okay, 24,000 dongs exchanged for $1. But the Vietnamese HGI is almost about 0.75, one of the top 20 in the whole world. Why is the valued value of the dong not affecting the life of the people, the HGI? Because the Vietnamese economy is a productive economy. The Vietnamese, 100 million people, 334,000 square kilometers.
Dr. Emeka, we're very interested in what you're saying at the moment, but let's take a very quick break. Perspectives, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News, where we're discussing the Nigerian Naira. We're still with you, Dr. Una Emeka. I would like to allow you to continue your statements.
So what happened? Vietnam population of 100 million people, the land mass of 334,000 square kilometers. Vietnam produces and exports nothing less than $350 billion worth of goods and services. Nigeria can replicate the same thing and even better. I look at Singapore. In 1965, Singapore was kicked out of mainland Malaysia because they felt they were useless. An island of 721 square kilometers, smaller than Alimosho. They have nothing to contribute apart from this. Singapore actually imports sand. It's leadership issue. Their leaders went to work. Today, Singapore ranks as a first world economy. From the maritime sector alone, Singapore makes average of $27 to $30 billion. And Nigeria can actually make the same thing from the maritime sector. We have over 800-kilometer coastal lines. Nigeria can actually be the transshipment hub of the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. If we inject efficiency like we have, Togo and Benin has more efficient port system than Nigeria. Why are we not getting it right? Leadership. Simple. And in the early 60s, there was productivity. Nigeria was a productive-based economy because of the physical and constitutional framework. Nobody bothered to go to Abuja to go and share fact. Because the regions controlled their resources and controlled the center. Everybody was looking inward. People looked at what they had competitive. And if we had allowed the constitutional framework in the early 60s to continue today, we wouldn't be where we are today. Because the arrangement then allowed the best of us to govern the rest of us. And we need to look, it's a foundational issue, and I keep on saying it. We can keep on deceiving ourselves. Look at it, we have been progressively in error. In 1980, China had over 769 million poor people. Nigeria had only 4.1. What did the Chinese do? The Chinese, first of all, exported people to US to go and learn. As they acquired knowledge, they were taking it back home. Diaspora Jackpa is needed. If you have the right foundation in Nigeria, those who are jackpying will go gain knowledge, gain experience, and come back to develop your country. But because there is insecurity, there is deformity, they are not coming back. China, in less than 25 years, took over 700 million people away from poverty. What happened to Nigeria? From 4.1 million poor Nigerians, today we have 1.3 million multi-dimensional poor Nigerians. What are we not getting wrong? We are getting everything wrong because we are not productive. We have a culture of rent seeking, a culture of what I call political elitist gangsterism. Everybody aspires to get power. Why are they aspiring to get power? They have no altruism. Leadership for them is all about what to take, what to steal, what to loot, what to kill, and what to destroy. So if the foundation is not right, even the righteous can do nothing. And that is the truth. This country has the capacity to generate and export nothing less than $300 billion worth of goods and services. We talk about Naira falling. China deliberately devalues the yuan because they are a productive economy. The lower the value of the yuan, the more export incentives and advantages that they have. Why we are crying and why the white man can call our currency junk. And it's junk actually because everything, and interestingly, 50% of the demand on the dollar are actually speculative and corruption driven. Go and check the trajectory. Once they share fact and jack, the governors and all of them begin to pursue malams to buy dollar and put under their bed, transfer to buy houses. Most of them, it is estimated that there are over $18 to $26 billion worth of houses in Dubai bought by Nigerian politicians and their fronts. Because that is the only thing they know how to do. Still, buy properties from Maryland to Washington to South Africa. They have no interest to govern. In 1970, go and look, Dubai was a desert. The difference between Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and Nigeria is leadership and governance structure. They have 7 emirates, each of them independent and autonomous. Nigeria can go back. Let me tell you, if we have a constitutional and physical framework, do you know why people can play on this religious and ethnic sentiment? It's because of the current constitutional framework. If we have a physical and constitutional framework that allows the regions to control their resources, control their seaports, like I have in America, 167 seaports, most of them privately managed and state managed, control their aviation, control their rail and roads, tax themselves and contribute to the center. I tell you, when people begin to control their destiny, even their security, the games most of these politicians play, because you see, they only remember ethnicity and religion when they want to divide the gullible masses, and they succeed because illiteracy level in this land is so high. Even those who are clutching degree certificates and professors are so bigoted. Bigoted. They don't even understand what the game. This position, they only play the ethnic and religious card when they want to gain power. But once they get there, they are united in stealing. Ask yourself this question: 110 billion was allocated to the National Assembly. APC, PDP, Labour Party, APGA, senators and rep. How many of them came on air to oppose it? In a country where Nigerians are bleeding, in a country where civil servants, even 150,000 naira minimum wage a month cannot be enough for them, the senators and reps gleefully gathered and shared 110 billion. The executive signed it for them.
Thank you.
There was nobody in the Senate or rep, either APGA or Labour Party or APC or PDP, that had the presence of mind and conscience to say this is not good in a country that is bleeding. All of them agreed to share it, because in stealing and looting and irresponsibility, they are united. But when they want to gain power, they play on the intelligence of the average Nigerian. I feel so sorry for that, because if 60% of Nigerians are as smart and enlightened as some of us, most of these guys in power will not be in power.
Thank you so much, Dr. Una Emeka. Let's bring back Oluseun. Oluseun, many giant global companies have exited Nigeria due to loss of revenue, foreign exchange difficulties, and so on and so forth. Even Nigerian companies have been experiencing exits in several industries, from banking to oil and gas to financial services manufacturing. Do you foresee a turnaround under the current administration? I believe you've reviewed the current ministerial list. What are your thoughts on Nigeria having a turnaround?
It's going to be difficult for us to have a turnaround because I believe that most times when you're asking a turnaround, you're asking yourself, what is the culture of the new government? What exactly would they say? Nigerians know the solution to Nigeria's problems. It's just that most times when they get into public office, once they find the kind of prevalent culture in there, possibly as dictated from the top, or the kind of that's introduced to them by the civil service, they just stoop to so low, and everybody's just fighting for themselves, and they forget about the picture. I look at the ministerial list, and I'm not too encouraged about it. It was a long list of party faithfuls. It was a long list of just paying back interest. And I think that's where the challenge is. And then you can look at it from very many fronts. You can start from the critical pivotal ministries that are supposed to turbocharge this economy. I mean, there's some of staggering profile you're expected to see. For example, if you're looking at your Ministry of Trade and Investment, if you're looking at your budget and national planning, those are agencies that you're supposed to look for. Even look at Ministry of Agriculture, they should be profiles. I mean, there's some places that were right. I mean, the communications, digital economy, the Ministry of Health, you would say yes. The Minister of the Attorney General, you would say those were the right square peg in the square hole. But in a lot of places, it looks like we just had people that we needed to compensate for political benefit, and then this is how we draw up a list. And you find out that there's still a strong, even for ministries that require technocratic experts, there's a struggle to want to fill those kind of people in those places. And that's just my own bigger challenge. Like the co-speaker said, you see, Nigeria's problem is very, very simple. And you can link it up, you can put it in two things. I mean, one is public sector efficiency and how do you engineer productivity. Period. If you're able to get public sector efficiency, the public sector understands its role at all levels, not just federal, state, that our role is to serve the people and our role is to engineer economic prosperity for the people. And you also build policies to engineer productivity. We'll be there in no time. We have petroleum. We're producing 2 million barrels per day for over close to 4 decades. I mean, we're doing around over 2 million barrels, even in the late 70s. Today, we can't even produce 1.2 million barrels per day. Our gas gas production, we are in Qatar we're on this gas production chase. And see how large Qatar gas production is right now. It's able even to lock down contracts for 20, 30, 60 years. I mean, Qatar is doing that currently. We are still struggling to even get trains and on board, and we are even less than a quarter or one like a third of what Qatar is doing. And you could also look at our non-oil exports. It's around $7 billion. Brazil does around $125 billion of agricultural exports in a year. So, I mean, and we also can produce sesame seed, we can produce soya beans, we can produce even palm oil, as the former speaker as I said. These are the things we need to sit back. So when you talk about your currency is devalued or your currency is looking value, a currency value is
We will come back to Oluseun once we get him back into the studio. Back to you, Dr. Onyeka. In necessity.
Let me take it from where Seun stopped.
Okay.
You know, in a working economy, in a country where people are very sincere, people like Seun Onigbinde or Ben Akabe, they should be heading the Budget and Economic Planning Ministry. If we are very serious, who is the guy there? Let us tell ourselves the truth. If we say the truth, we will die. If we don't say the truth, you say that. So let us say the truth. We talked about Abacha. We say, oh, Abacha is looted Nigeria and provided us with palliative. Who were those that helped Abacha to structure the Ponzi scheme that he did? There are those in the cabinet running the budget and planning things. I talked about agriculture, what Brazil is doing. Netherlands, landmass of Netherlands is as KB state alone is bigger than Netherlands in landmass. Borno is bigger than Netherlands in landmass. Netherlands exports over $121 billion worth of agri products. I'll give you specifics because it's very easy for us to just say this without being specific. Look at the northern part of Nigeria. We talk about desertification and we give excuses why we've allowed nomadic herdsmen, which is not right. The northern part of Nigeria is the only place in the whole world created by God where the date palm tree can grow and produce twice in a year. When Bible talked about a land flowing with milk and honey, it was talking about about animal rearing and the date fruits. Saudi Arabia, as wealthy as Saudi Arabia is, had created over 900,000 hectares of the date plantation over a period of 16 years. Egypt, that has 96% desert, produced and export over 1.7 million tons of dates. It's a $27 billion market, and Nigeria is in a position to even grow it. I had a meeting I was privileged to speak at the PDP's governors forum in 2019, and I provided the 19 state governors with templates on how they can develop this date palm plantation in the north. Each state doing about 50,000 hectares. In fact, they will do over the next 4 years, they can create 1 million hectares of the date plantation in a cluster of 40 hectares where they can do what we call agro-pastoral scheme. They can even provide water, their irrigation borehole for even the nomadic herdsmen to have a place where they can rear their animal things. Because in Netherlands, we have over 18,000 dairy farms under the same agro-pastoral scheme. You cannot reinvent the wheel. And in the next 7 years, if they have listened to us, the templates was there, the seedlings were there, whatever they would do, if they had listened to us, by 2027, if they had listened in 2019, by 2027, we will have cultivated enough date palm plantation, first of all, to curb desertification and earn between $8.5 to $12 billion annually over the next 70 years. In the southeast and the south-south, the former governor of the CBN, Emefiele, provided 32 billion naira foundation fund for the palm plantation development.
Okay.
We did proposal to these governors.
Okay.
Look at Okomu Oil, look at Presco. Okomu Oil and Presco was done the same time at the palm, and the Reik palm settlement was done by Michael Obara. Okomu and the Presco was privatized, and today they are the only company in the stock exchange who over the last 21 years have consistently paid dividend on an annual basis. We did proposal to the governors on a private-public partnership arrangement, how they can get, in the southeast, we have over 1,150 autonomous communities. You can get these communities, lands are communally owned in the southeast. We have a small land mass, 28,000 square kilometers. Every community, in my own community, we have over 178 hectares of land. We surveyed it for them. If every of the communities dedicates 30 to 40 hectares to develop, we have a settling bank, the Tenera species of the Malaysians. If you get the communities to develop, they will clear their land, give them settlements, give them agricultural officers. In less than 3 years, because the Tenera start fruiting in 3 years, we will have developed nothing less than 300,000 hectares of the palm plantation in the south and the southeast.
Such an absolute
that alone will provide extra income of over $55 billion annually over the next 50 years, creating nothing less than 33 million jobs at the upstream and 1 million jobs at the other value chain. And it will not take anything from these governors. I thought about saying, keep your fact, keep your jack, allow us to drive the template. It's a private-public partnership arrangement. Afro-Exim, AFDB will throw in money when they see the problem we have in Nigeria today. Everybody looks at Abuja. The most irresponsible set of politicals are in the states and local governments. All our efforts, and those in Abuja should help us put in place the physical and constitutional framework that will make the people look. If we have an arrangement that will make the people begin to hold accountable those in the local government and the states, the schism we have in Nigeria, the division we have in Nigeria, these political guys leverage on the ignorance and the gullibility of the mass of Nigerians. Literacy level of about 62% to play on their minds. Nigeria alone on the agri sector, we have templated sector by sector. In the rice value chain, Nigeria can easily over the next 1 year cultivate and produce 8 million tons of rice in Nigeria, enough to cover our local demand and will export. It does not take any skyrocket science.
Thank you, Dr.
But the problem we have is that we have no leadership anywhere in it. 96% of those who purport to govern us.
Thank you, Dr.
Are hirelings who do not care about Nigeria.
We would absolutely come back to you. Quality leadership is extremely important to Nigeria's future. We're going to take a very quick break. Perspectives, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. It's been an interesting conversation with Dr. Unaemeka, but let's take it back to Sheon. Sheon, let's discuss issues the Central Bank of Nigeria may currently be battling with. What are your thoughts, final words on the Naira and the slow adoption, and on Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Falana, saying that he would sue the CBN over the Naira float?
I'm not a lawyer, so I will not know if there's a need to sue the CBN over the Naira float. But I understand that monetary stability and also price stability, those are the purview of the CBN. Even if the law says fix the currency, there's a reality that the CBN doesn't even have the firepower to fix the currency. I mean, we all saw the audited statement of the CBN. We all recognize that even if the CBN quotes that it has $31 to $32 billion in external reserves, it had already borrowed $7.5 billion specifically from international banks. It has a outstanding forwards payment. People who have brought in resources into Nigeria, and the CBN is committed to pay them at some point in time around 6.8 billion. So definitely, technically, the reserves that you have is around 18 billion. I mean, the reserves, that covers around 4.5 months of imports. So, if we want to even keep defending that currency and we keep going on and on, at the point we will lose international credibility, and that just puts us out that just brings everything to an end. So I personally believe what has happened recently should have happened years ago. We should have had more like a crawling peg, where we're able to move, where CBN should have been able to, should have been able to change the dynamics of exchange rate over time, not just keep ourselves stuck at 400, which was not tenable. And we also created the high room for arbitrage in those times. I think so. And if you look at the Naira, my own view about that is that I don't see that why that should be the purview of the CBN. I don't think. As the CBN trying to act like a commercial bank, it just doesn't make sense for me. If you want to create a token system or a virtual currency, let the banks set up a policy and let the banks stick with that. The CBN should primarily be a policy institution. And that's one of the big problems where the CBN faced in the last government. You try to do everything. I mean, if you look at the statistics, CBN's loans and receivables to the economy was 6.4 trillion in 2015. That amount has grown to 32 trillion in just 8 years. So it's just all this continuous intervention where the CBN cannot set a difference between you are a policy institution, you are an independent regulator, and when you can't even understand that that is your role and you are not supposed to be like a commercial bank or maybe like a fiscal institution. So those are the decisions where the new CBN or the current CBN has to look at. I mean, CBN should, be as professional as possible, because if you don't do that, you are setting violence, against your currency. You're fighting your currency, and you're going to destroy the economy. And we have seen that effectively. CBN, I mean, the way people set up even the Federal Reserves in the US is to have a high level of independence and to be able to give honesty, because we know fiscal authority try to do different things. They will try to build bridges. They will try to build roads. They want to do 100 things in the same year. They want to steal half of that money. You are the ones to set the tone right about what is permissible or not. Because you should, as an institution, have a long-term view of the economy as much as possible.
Thank you so much, Oluseun. It was great to have you on Perspectives today as one of our special guests. And parting words from you, Dr. Onameka.
Okay. The most unfortunate thing, just like what Seun said, those who purport to govern us do not really understand the linkage between what is happening in Nigeria and insecurity. I listened to the CBN governor who was saying that that they are going to take measures to get the foreign direct investment, diasporan investment are being diverted. Diaspora remittances on average about $25 billion. But what Nigerians or those who purport to govern us have failed to understand that 25 billion is token. The greatest export of that is not good. It's the 5 million Nigerians in diaspora. If we have the right structures in place, security architecture in place, that number can go to 100 billion. I'll give you an example. Imo State today is besetted by insecurity. It wasn't there before 2020. From my community, where I come from, Ihupo Kigwe in Imo State, over the last 1 year, public schools have been closed because of insecurity. In fact, we have over 100 from my village, medical doctors, nurses, who normally every year come back to the village with loads of dollar equipment to come and do medical help for our people. Most of those guys have not come back over the last 1 year because of insecurity. And the truth is that as long as we do not fix the security challenges in Nigeria, those diasporans will not bring in money. And then, do you know the interesting aspect of it is that this insecurity can easily be tackled. That is taking it back to the P2B in Anambra State. They should go and look at what P2B is in Anambra State and model it, and Nigeria will be fixed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Onameka. We've reached the end of Perspectives for today. I'm really glad to have had you as one of our special guests, and we hope to see you another day soon. Well, the current Naira formula is petrodollars minus effective leadership, which equals high poverty. What new formula are we creating today for our children and many generations to come? The Naira can be one of the world's strongest currencies, with strong decision makers, strong industries, strong education, strong citizens, strong actions, and a strong vision. Greater widespread education, greater humanity, and greater Naira will lead to greater Nigeria. I am Olatorera Majekodunmi-Oniru. Thank you for watching Perspectives. Thank you to our special guests for joining us today. Have a very great weekend and see you all very soon. Goodbye.